will be possible. And it's already taken.
Madam Mayor, I think we're back live.
See it. I believe that they were just checking.
They checked. We are live.
Okay, let's resume. We have time for public comment, of course, as always. And Richard Curcio.
Again, Richard Garcia, 7 South Conway, and for
It's
the
like
record,
deja
Chair
vu.
of Finance Advisory Board of the Bond Oversight Committee. And I'm glad William did his presentation, because I came up here with one thing, but now there's two. We're gonna make it more bike friendly. I think we need to have some sort of an awareness program for the citizens. There are statutes that determine how bicycle riding should be done. If you're in the road, you're a vehicle, you need to appropriate those laws. If you're on the sidewalk, you're a pedestrian, you need to adhere to those laws. We have an ordinance in the city that doesn't allow bikes on the sidewalk, and that's not enforced. So I think we need to look at what the statute reads, how you're gonna create some sort of a bike-friendly city, and have some sort of an education program for those people that are riding around, so that they're not one-way streets. People going the wrong way on a one-way street, you back out of your driveway, you're almost hitting somebody, that sort of thing. But what I came up here to talk about was the charter school section of that, and I respectfully disagree with Commissioner Hardy. I understand the $2.75 billion budget that the school district has, and their inefficiency in managing that and how it's affected our schools. And I implore all of you over the next few weeks before you get to the second hearing or second reading, to look at the Pembroke Pines Charter District. They took over their schools from the district in Broward County, and 16 years straight, their elementary and middle schools are A-rated, 100%. Their high school has won awards nationally from doing this. It's funded, governmental funded, not from there, and they're able to pay their teachers better and teach their children better and separate themselves from certain restrictions as far as curriculum goes. So I implore all of you to look at that model, because I could see that working here in Lake Worth. It gives us a little more control over our children and our curriculum, and maybe elevate the level of learning that they get, and bringing them in. Yeah, you do that too. That's it. Again, I think it's a great model to look at. It's that's 3 minutes?
That's
Two.
3 minutes.
Okay.
Richard Stowe, followed by Darren Engel.
What's the time limit on this?
2 minutes on these agenda items, 3 minutes on public participation of non-agenda. Is that correct or not?
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
I'm Richard Stowe, 414 North Federal Highway. I wanted to just express support for the bicycle and pedestrian master plan and complete streets, safe routes to school as part of this program. Regarding sea level rise strategies, Moody's investment, November 29th article, Bloomberg Business article, said Moody's Investment Service has incorporated climate change into its credit ratings for state and local bonds. So cities like Lake Worth, which are exposed, they're going to be asking what are cities like Lake Worth doing to mitigate that exposure. They've identified 6 indicators, including share of homes in our floodplains. Regarding the train service on the FEC corridor, really the two outlier plans, 10th Avenue North and 9th Avenue South, are really should not be really a focus of the city. We should really focus on the Lake Avenue FEC train stop. And actually, if the city had a choice or wanted to advise SFRTA, it would be best for us to have train service on the FEC line rather than, if given a choice of one or the other, rather than the CSX line, in terms of the issues that you've talked about, that William Waters has talked about tonight in terms of development, transit-oriented development.
Thank you.
Oh, and then finally, regarding Mr. Richard's comment on the bicycling, Cycling Savvy is a really excellent bicycle education program. And then finally, I just want to correct, February 17th, Saturday, February 17th is the date for Festival of Trees.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Engel, followed by Kim Stokes.
Good evening, Darren Angle, 328 Ocean Breeze. I would like to thank staff and our consultant Nilsa for a great job on the comp plan. I think that was a lot of work. It reflects a lot of what our community is looking forward to. Reason that got me up here, though, is I want to echo some of the sentiment about the emphasis on the charter schools and try to maybe de-emphasize that, maybe say alternative forms of education or routes of education, but not specifically charter schools. I happen to be a father of a North Grade student. North Grade Elementary School is an excellent, excellent elementary school. It is a specialty school. It has children bused in from other cities such as Palm Springs and Green Acres. That might be another route that we should look at for other schools in our city. And I think that through our community, through partnerships, through education and stuff, I think that's really where we need to address education. Our diversity is actually our strength. And I'm proud to have a child that does not know the difference between rich and poor. And the kids in school don't really even distinguish between it. I do know that there's kids in very wealthy schools in Palm Beach County that know what the latest iPad is supposed to be and pick on children when they don't have it. We don't have that in Lake Worth, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Ms. Stokes?
Hi, Kim Stokes, 1321 North L Street, and I agree with everything that man just said. And I do want to speak about the charter schools as well. I taught at Lake Worth High School for 6 years, and investing in public education, making sure we retain the students whose parents have the time and resources to pay attention to what's going on in those schools and to participate and help with volunteerism and fundraising and everything else is so important, because when you open up these charter schools, the people that have the time to do the research to find what school is going to be best for my child, and can I fill out the paperwork and can I navigate all of these loopholes to get into that school, are the ones we need to keep in our public education. And in North Grade, I was just at the SAC meeting last night, and they are actually looking to expand into a K-8 program for their dual language students. So next year, if everything goes according to plan, their dual language students will be able to stay there for 6th grade rather than leaving our city to go to other magnet schools in other areas of choice. And I think the principal is saying it's something that Dr. Abosa is looking into throughout the county, and we need to back him up and we need to support each other. And we do need to bridge the community as well with our schools. And I think we need to do that with our neighborhood associations and joining with PTA and SAC. And I really am glad to hear that the mayor is working with the principals. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. Okay. We've got a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who spoke. Moving on to item I. Ordinance number 2017-26. City Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2017-26 of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, amending the city's comprehensive plan by repealing the current future land use map and adopting a new future land use map, providing a conflicts clause, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
William?
Well, we covered part of this in our previous little discussion under the future land use section. There is a proposed future land use map. The last time it was significantly updated and changed was in 2012. Prior to that, it was 2009. What we have done with the future land use map is try to facilitate the means to put in place all the goals, objectives, and policies that are in the comprehensive plan itself. I want to reiterate that the future land use map does not change any of the current zoning or any of the current uses in the city. It just sets the stage that if somebody would like to change something, they can come through the process, which does require 3 public hearings to change a zoning classification to a different one. much the same as our comprehensive plan, the process here, which has had 3 public hearings, actually 4. But if, depending on where it would be through an LPA, local planning agency, either the Historic Preservation Board or Planning Board, and then on to you. So we're looking at how we envision the uses being distributed throughout the city over the next 20 years. All the things that, and I've heard some consternation about some of the changes that have been proposed. We have facilitated an expansion of single-family residential development opportunities in the city. We have increased artisanal industrial areas to encourage a broader economic job base for the city. We have increased, and very slightly, some of the higher density residential. Some of that is actually putting back in place what was in our comprehensive future land use map from 2009. We were very aggressive in reducing the higher density areas in the 2012 update. I fear that staff was, which is mostly me, was a little bit too aggressive in shrinking those multifamily areas to like just 1 block each. There were several blocks. I have that map from 2009 if you want to see it, but we have returned in minor areas, bringing some properties into compliance, conformity, which are non-conformity now, and allowing an opportunity for investment in those areas where they could do it under the 2009 comp plan, but they can't do it now in our 2012 version. We replaced part of that. The TODs have been discussed extensively. We have broadened that to allow and hopefully encourage the assemblage of areas so that, yes, Mr. Stowe mentioned, our first priority is the Lake Avenue train station location, but looking 20 years into the future, one station will not likely serve adequately the density and residents that we hope to see in the city. So 10th Avenue would be the 2nd tier 1, and then the one further south would be the 3rd tier 1. That still remains a great deal of collaboration with a whole variety of entities to have that happen. That is generally, in very simple terms, what has been changed. If you want me to go into more specificity, I can, but that's the nuts and bolts of it.
Several issues were brought before. When I mentioned earlier that I had spoken at Bryant Park Neighborhood Association, they had some questions about it, and then also in Mango Groves, most of it directed towards the south end of the city. I'd like to hear public comment too, so we could maybe address some of these issues, some of the questions or issues that we had, and then we'll come back and reconvene if that's okay. Because I know one of the persons who asked the question has a card in, which is Mr. Engel, and then followed by John Fable. Second one up. Mr. Engel first. Yeah. Thank you.
This thing up again. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I'm going to speak on behalf of myself and the Bryant Park Neighborhood Association. The Historic Preservation Board made a decision and voted on it, and that's in your documentation. Currently, the future land use map shows the 200 and 300 blocks of South Lakeside on the east side as medium-density residential, which is consistent with the neighborhood from 2nd Avenue South down to 5th Avenue South. The proposed future land use map shows the east side of the 200 and 300 blocks of South Lakeside adjacent to Bryant Park are shown as high-density residential and can facilitate up to 40 units per acre. I did an analysis of those 2 blocks. They're 2 small blocks which shoot out as a finger from the district. The current built density is 13.44 dwelling units per acre. The average units per property is 2.64 units. The average stories in height of them is 1.64 stories. The amount of historic contributing buildings and qualifying buildings is 68%. There's over 50% contributing historic buildings on that. In summary, and by the way, there's no vacant or blighted property there. In summary, the proposed change would increase up to 40 units per acre, which is not consistent with the existing built environment. Most of the existing buildings are contributing historic properties in South Palm Park Local Historic District. A few more are eligible. Increasing the density to the subject properties greatly threatens the integrity of the historic district. It is apparent that the future land use map designation of medium density residential is consistent, the existing future land use map is consistent with the subject properties and adjacent properties to the west, extending all the way west to South Federal Highway. None of the existing subject properties are blighted, and most of them are above average condition and are occupied for their intended use. Thank you.
Mr. Fable? Welcome.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to be in front of you this evening. I should have spoken on the previous item about the comp plan. That's what my thoughts were. However, as far as the comp plan, this is the finest piece of work, I think, in my years of living in Lake Worth since 1967. This is the finest piece of work I've seen come out of the Planning and Zoning Department, is what we used to call it, but Department of Sustainability. But my concern is the reducing of the office and commercial uses in the city of Lake Worth. The city of Lake Worth has seen a dramatic drop in office and commercial uses for a long time now. You drive up and down Federal Highway, you drive up and down Dixie Highway, and you see vacancies. There needs to be more commercial uses, I think, productive commercial uses in the city. I applaud this city for what they have done with the Park of Commerce. Lake Worth has had all this industrially zoned property out there, not necessarily all in the city limits at one time or another, but it's been out there and underutilized, and it is terrific what you folks are pushing out there now, and I applaud you for it. I think that my main concern is the North Federal Corridor. I know that the mixed use east encompasses that. Several years ago, we used to have a lot of physicians and surgeons and different uses up there, and that's kind of gone away. And it concerns me also because we are property owners on North Federal Highway. We have a psychologist renting an office from us and an attorney renting an office from us. And I'd like to be able to get more clean commercial uses that I could rent to in Lake Worth. But that's my two main concerns. And the charter schools, very quickly, I know that's been discussed. My wife retired after 36 years in the school district. We are very aware of what charter schools do. When property appraiser Jax was here, she alluded to the properties that were off of the tax roll. Charter schools are off of the tax roll. So these are things that need to be considered.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know, I live on Federal Highway too. It's my house sitting right there on Federal Highway, right where you're talking about. Could you clarify a couple
Sure.
of the issues? Thank you.
I'm going to start with the last person first. It's a little bit easier. The current comp plan has an emphasis on, in our mixed-use districts, that 75% of all building in that district be commercial, retail, office, and 25% residential. What we have done, we have not reduced the areas that allow commercial, retail, and office, but we've changed that percentage. There is no way that 25% of our 25% residential development could ever support in Lake Worth 75% commercial, retail, and office. So we have flipped it. We have got to increase the opportunities for residential. The areas that allow for office, retail, and commercial have not changed. We just reduced their percentage in that district to 25% of the overall area. We can revisit that over time if that percentage does not work out, but I feel very strongly that our strongest avenue to economic health is to get as many residential units with active, productive people with some money to spend as we possibly can, and they in turn will provide a basis to develop and encourage more commercial, retail, and office. On the Federal Highway element, the issue that he brought up, that would be covered under the land development regulations. There was a specific section put in before I got here that precluded medical and other types of things in several blocks of the Federal Highway Mixed Use East District. We did not change that when we adopted the new LDRs in 2013. That could be revisited by the commission at a later date.
Can you explain what that means? I'm sorry.
What it means is that there are certain uses that are allowed in the mixed-use federal highway zoning classification, except if you're north of a certain area. And I cannot remember the name of that actual breaking point, but it's very getting close to College Park. There was a decision made by a board like you in the past that those uses that were allowed everywhere else on federal highway were not appropriate for that portion of federal highway. I think it's around 18th or 16th north to where it ends. We can revisit that. But the future land use here would not preclude or discourage our revisiting that or looking at it. We would not have to make any changes to the comp plan if you so decided to extend and reallow those types of uses in the north end of federal highway.
We just need to know what types of uses they are.
It's medical.
Medical, they
Med-
don't
medical.
allow for medical?
We don't allow medical offices in that area north end of federal highway. We do in the rest of part of that district.
It's the least,
I
I
can't
mean, to
explain.
have commercial in a residential
I
area,
can't
it's the
explain
least
some of the
intrusive of
decisions
all
that were
the.
made in the past. We have some quirky things in our code that I didn't feel like it was appropriate to really challenge, because the question didn't come up. The question has now come up. We can look at it and bring it forward to you probably at a later date.
I just think that if your home backs up to a commercial lot, do you want it with something that has 24/7 traffic on it? Or a medical office that's open from 9 to 5 that has very low traffic counts and
Well,
whatnot?
keep in mind that medical office now is transitioning quite heavily into urgent care, which is open 24 hours a day.
Okay. Urgent care is the same classification as medical offices?
It is very close, yes.
Okay.
So, to the Bryant Park question.
Okay.
As I was mentioning earlier, we aggressively reduced the multifamily options in the future land use when we adopted the changes in 2012, which most of you, at least 3 of you, were on the board when that happened. And I mentioned I think it was a little bit too aggressive. So we brought back the higher density on only 2 half blocks, and those are between 2 Second Avenue South and Second Avenue North, and Second Avenue South and Fourth Avenue South, right against Bryant Park, which I know this map is really not the most helpful right in here. What may be a little more. This is a 2009 future land use map that was adopted, and you can tell that this whole area was high density residential. We reduced it back to 1 block, changing the areas in question from part of it from high density residential to medium, and the one below it was already medium. We're just proposing to bring back those 2 blocks that face Bryant Park
Can you
as high
highlight
density. Unfortunately, with our new technology system, I don't have the ability to do that,
You have a
but
pointer or
it's
a cursor?
right here. A pointer.
Where's the pointer?
A pointer
Yeah,
will work on
do you have a
it.
pointer, Madam Clerk?
Can you see
I
that little thing
don't
moving
know
around?
that we do.
Can you get up there in Vanna White?
Can I point it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. I don't know Lake Worth.
So,
Hold on.
I'd love to tell you, but I can't.
now the future land use proposed change does not, it's the 2.
There you go.
Yeah. Right. Under our current zoning, the height for multifamily 20, 30, and 40 is all the same, 35 feet and 3 stories. This change would allow someone, if they were to want to come in and possibly get to 40 units per acre versus the 20, which is allowed now under the medium density residential. But that doesn't happen without a zoning change. This just facilitates if somebody wanted to do that, they could.
40.
40 units per acre versus 20.
When I asked you about this in the past, you said 25.
Now, if the current zoning is 20, under a bonus mechanism, you can get to 25.
So, yeah,
Yeah, well, we have built in an incentive program that will come to you if somebody chooses to exercise it, where you can get increased densities, intensities, and heights in certain areas. Keep in mind, we have charter provisions in place, and we have other things in place that is not making those increases exponential or limitless. So if somebody chose to exercise that mechanism here, they could go from 20 units per acre to 25. However, they have to have at least a half an acre of property.
So where does the 40 come? What am I
The,
missing?
okay, the future land use, this change, right now, medium density residential only allows 20 units per acre. High density residential allows either 30 or 40 units per acre, but only if the zoning's changed, because the zoning right now is multifamily 20.
He's talking future land use map.
I don't know how else
categories.
better to explain it. If a
Yeah,
developer,
yeah.
or if somebody wanted to come in,
Right now,
you can build 20 units per acre,
what is it zoned now?
multifamily 20.
Multifamily 20. And this would allow for it to go to,
It could possibly be changed to multifamily 30. We do not have any established districts at multifamily 40. They are used as a mechanism if you were in certain mixed-use districts to develop at an intensity of 40 units per
but
acre.
follow me if you wonder why I'm looking at you like you have 6 heads.
I know.
Okay, so you said 20, it said 20, but it could go to multi 30. Now where did 30 come from? Where's the 40 coming?
A change to high-density residential future land use would allow any mixed residential district of 20, 30, or 40 units per acre. We have all those in our code. At present, we have no multifamily 40 zoning districts anywhere in the city. It's there to provide a development pattern if you want to develop at that intensity in certain mixed-use districts. So with this future land use change, it would facilitate someone possibly requesting to change the density from multifamily 20 to multifamily 30.
And how many acres would you have to have?
Well, it depends. If you are, and we can't do spot zoning. Zoning's complicated. And the multifamily 30 district ends at 2nd Avenue South. If somebody wanted to go to multifamily 30, the area proposed would have to be adjacent to that, otherwise it would be a spot zoning. So it would probably start very near where Bo Allen's building is, the condo that's 4 stories, and could progress down possibly. But you couldn't get to multifamily 40 because there's no zoning district for that. We definitely would be spot zoning in that case.
So what were the concerns that were expressed by Mr. Engel?
That I guess we're facilitating a mechanism to possibly go from 20 units per acre to 30.
Or 40, he said.
Well, you can't get to 40, though, because keep in mind, we have broad categories. So high-density residential includes all the avenues of density from 40 below. But the zoning district's what actually governs what the density is in a zoning district.
Right.
And we can't establish a multifamily 40 zoning district there.
Okay. Gotcha. Commissioner Winslow?
Go that way first.
Commissioner Hardy?
So I just want to make sure I understand this. All right. The land use map is setting the potential for a range of things to happen that the zoning currently limits.
Yes.
And so what the land use does, it gives us a wider range of zoning options in the future for this particular
It
area.
would give us a wider range of density
Density.
and intensity
and
options,
intensity. Okay.
not uses.
Not uses. Correct. And Darren, shake your head if I'm not properly. But when I heard your comments, what I heard was what's going there is in our neighborhood, and our neighborhood has a certain quality to it. And if we change this land use, it will allow things of a quality that is very different from what the rest of the neighborhood is. And that threatens the value of what we have going on in the rest of our neighborhood. Okay. I've heard that. And what I feel is that really you're just extending it 2 blocks down. And that it is on the periphery of the neighborhood. And that we do have these goals of more good contributing citizens coming into the city. And it's already multifamily, right? It's already multifamily. Now, what was very interesting was the densities that Darren presented. Currently, I think, like 13 and a half, I think was the highest density. So that's very different. What I'm interested in is, okay, just because we change this land use here, does that necessarily mean that somebody's going to come in and maximize those densities?
No.
They would have to have a pretty specific project in mind that would have to work just perfectly with what we've already got there, plus the sustainability permit.
And you have to factor in that it's in a historic district.
Right. They would have to do everything right
Yes,
and in a very specific way in order to maximize the densities there.
yes.
So just because the ceiling has gone up doesn't necessarily mean that what might go there would actually accommodate that ceiling. We're
Exactly.
probably going to get something not so extreme. We just need to provide a space for this animal to turn around in, basically.
That's a good analogy.
Okay.
Vice Mayor?
Well, having said and heard all that, then it begs the question, why are we changing this at all? If it's going to be almost impossible that you have to have every star and planet line up perfectly to pull this off, then why are we bothering to do it in the first place?
To try to provide the latitude to encourage an investment in the city that we have not had before.
Are there no
If we do
other-
not strive for the best and highest in the city, we won't get it. If we want to accept mediocre, we can do mediocre. That's not why I came to Lake Worth. I want the city to be the best version it possibly can be, and there are interests that would like to see an opportunity to actually be creative and do a little bit better product. Some projects don't work, even though the building is the same size, it won't work at the densities that we have because of cost of construction, type of construction, some other things. And so providing a little bit more latitude, we might see something happen on a couple of those properties, taking into consideration that they are historic in nature. They are in a historic district, would have to go before the preservation board. But we can't, I wear different hats. I have a preservation degree, I've got an architecture degree and a planning degree and an urban design degree. But at the same token, marrying all those together, we need some more openness to encourage investment in some areas to help improve the mechanism to collect revenue and to have a stronger stream of finances so that the neighborhoods that we really want to protect, where they're going to be there. I spoke at a commission meeting at this point 6 years ago and said our goal was to encourage $100 million of investment in the city 5 years straight. Even though we've had a very healthy economy, we have not achieved that. And one of the problems is that what we allow in the density factor cannot work in the numbers. They can build a building of a certain size, but they cannot get enough units in it to make it work. And much of the development that we've had that's been multifamily, good or bad, has been subsidized under the NSP2 program. That's east of 95. And so providing some latitude for someone to get really, really creative and bring in the perfect project, I don't see a reason why to not allow that to have a possibility.
Commissioner Robinson?
It's, Bryant Park is my neighborhood as well, and I recognize its value in location. And we are maximizing, or not, we're probably not maximizing, but we're looking at our potential, and it has a price, and I think it's a good thing. What I'm concerned about is South Federal Highway, and I don't hear any incentive or any grand plan to develop South Federal Highway, which is vacant land.
But there is.
Well, tell me how good it is. Because,
it's
you know,
not-
the vacant land should be a whole lot easier than changing a historic
But
neighborhood.
keep in mind that, again, Federal Highway is, the properties along there are only one lot deep, and they are bordered by single family on both sides.
That's a challenge for planning, right?
That's a challenge for planning and use. We've discussed extensively that certain types of commercial uses probably are not appropriate, especially on South Federal Highway, because it is such a predominance of single family. However, there is,
Excuse me, you're telling me that South Federal Highway is a predominance of single-family homes?
on the areas that abut Federal Highway, yes, there are.
I'm talking about South Federal Highway.
I'm talking about South Federal Highway too. If you
Okay.
look
Back
at
up.
South Palm Park,
It
the
all backs up to something.
most of
Everything
it backs up to
something
single
else.
family. Now, the federal highway area can take advantage of the urban plan development incentive that's in the comprehensive plan that can bump up densities by 25%, intensities by 25%, and possibly height by 25%, but it's still going to be capped at 3 stories. It might facilitate a more creative use of the property that allows for a mixed use for commercial, office, or retail on the first floor and residential on the upper floors. Because parking is always going to be a challenge on those blocks because they're so shallow. They're only 135 feet deep. And to get a building facing the street and accommodate the parking and everything else, it's a challenge. So right now, the only interest that we've had so far is developing townhomes on South Federal Highway. And there have been at least one project approved, another one finished that was already previously approved. Another one came through historic, and there's interest in possibly bringing 2 other ones. Other than that, we have had no interest from anyone voicing to create a motel there or office or retail.
Then in your planning profession, wouldn't that indicate that a change is possible to do something to bring a tax base to those vacant lots?
We propose changes based on what the market conditions are. And no developer that I've spoken to feels that they can make a retail, commercial, or office, or even combination of those work on Federal Highway.
Do I understand that planning is part of developing a market itself? You know,
We respond to the market and we try to create a market. But
create,
again,
you're supposed to.
but if you keep in mind, Mr. Robinson, we have about 6 linear miles of commercially zoned property in the city. And they're going to go to the most advantageous location, which is going to be Lake and Lucerne and the areas around Dixie Highway between 10th Avenue and 6th Avenue. Those will get developed first. The last areas that are going to be looked at for commercial, retail, and office is South Federal Highway. I'm sorry, I can't change that.
Or residential, which I'm not sure that, I'm not sure it's being challenged enough to develop it. Enough said. I'm frustrated that I'm looking at vacant lots when we're spending a lot of time on 2 blocks, when creativity should come to the number of vacant lots on South Federal Highway.
Are you looking, Commissioner Robinson, in reference to, I'm sorry, I'm trying to assess what you're frustrated about. Is it that you're
Tax
looking?
base.
No, are you looking at single-family developments on Federal Highway?
That's allowed.
Is that what you're suggesting?
Something.
Anything, whatsoever.
You can develop a single-family house on Federal Highway. You can develop a 2-family house on
wouldn't be-
Federal Highway. You can develop up to 20 units per acre right now on Federal Highway. You can do 3 stories. You can do office, retail, commercial on much of Federal Highway. It is about as broad of an array of uses and development patterns as anywhere in the city. There's just not a market for it right now.
Commissioner Ramoroso?
Okay, let's go back to North Federal. So, I think our friend in the back, one of his concerns that he's expressed to me is the properties on North Federal, and I think it's up to like 18th, are right now allowed and are dentists,
Right.
doctors,
That
medical.
will be a conversation for a land development change, regulation, not a future land use map
Okay,
change.
but will that stay the same?
What do you mean?
So if a dentist moves out, can another dentist move in?
Yes, non-conforming uses can stay as long as the business licenses are active and do not lapse for more than 6 months in a year or 18 months over a 3-year period.
Okay, so those same like, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hart?
Yeah, 2 things. First, to address Vice Mayor Maxwell's question of, well, if someone's got to do some very specific things to maximize the densities and intensities in these 2 blocks here in Bryant Park, why make the changes to the densities in the land use map at all? What my comment about making a room large enough for this animal to turn around, and maybe it wasn't the most apt comment, but basically, you need think of it as a doorway, right? We want a nice sized person to walk through a doorway. You can't have the top of the doorway be 5'6". If you want Kobe Bryant to walk in the door, you have to build a door height that's taller than Kobe Bryant so that he can at least get in the room, right? So we're not creating densities here so that someone can max them out and fill their, get just in every single space. We're creating more density than what would be used so that a minimally economically viable building can get in there. That's why these changes to these 2 blocks are made. And I don't expect these densities to be maximized because, as you said, you've got so many hoops to jump through there. Now the densities will increase significantly, probably from 13.5 what's currently being used. But I don't think that the densities will likely be maximized there. And also we've still got the zoning code there, right? That's got to get changed. And that's a part of a political process that we all will participate in if some private actor finds that they can make something work here that is contributing to the city and to the goals that we all have. The other thing about Commissioner Maxwell's comments about South Federal Highway, I totally agree that we perhaps need to take a more aggressive stance on creating an environment, right? Creating a market, right? Planning so as to create an environment where people really feel like it's a no-brainer that I've got to get in here and do something. Unfortunately, when our staff makes documents like this, they have in mind normal planning principles and architectural issues, but they also have in mind the political realities with which we deal here, right? And so, the fact is, if we wonder why South Federal Highway is not economically viable, like the fact you can only build a building that's 35 feet tall there when the lots are, 150 feet?
135 feet deep.
135 feet deep. So like you said, you've got to fit parking there. You've got to get all kinds of stuff in these 135-foot deep lots. And you have to do it all within 35 feet. And it's just not, it's everything else around the city has to be so hot in order for something like that to work. There's got to be tremendous confidence in what's going on in the city. And I don't know if we'll ever get there. And so perhaps the solution for us...
Point of order. No, I'm just kidding.
Perhaps the solution for us going forward is to reevaluate the commitment that we have to changing the city. And that means that we can't be as afraid as we have been in the past to make significant, not incremental, significant changes to documents like this to encourage the kind of development that we want to see. We can't sit here and talk about, and I'm not saying that we do, but I'm just saying, we can't sit here and talk about how we want things to be vastly different, how we want our city to be so much safer, about how we want to have money for infrastructure and all this stuff, while making only incremental changes to these documents that set the table for our future. That's just a thought. And so if we want to make South Federal Highway more economically viable, then we need to make radical changes to what's allowed to go there and not small changes. And that's not just a function of what the planning staff does, that's a function of the environment that the planning staff knows that they're operating in politically. And so if we back them up, maybe we get a different product. If we don't back them up, if we don't make it clear to them, swing for the fences, then we get a bunt, or we get a single, or a half-hearted attempt at a double. So we can certainly do a better job of backing up staff and creating more aggressive documents like this.
I think that I just want to say one thing. I think that the bones just of South Federal Highway are so good to aesthetically do something really creative to make that property in demand. It just hasn't, you know what I mean? There are things that we really need to look at, and that's a conversation we can have at another time. But the bones of South Federal, despite what it's been through and blighted and whatever else, are so truly amazing that special things could really happen up and down South Federal Highway. I mean, if you look at communities, let's go as far south as, when I first moved here, I thought, well, how did South Beach do it? All those rundown, hotels and motels in South Beach and all those, and then all of a sudden it's South Beach. It used to be these drug-infested, prostitute-infested little places that are now the trendiest little boutique hotels in all of the area. How did they do that? And could you turn it? Well, they're not hotels, Pam. They're motels, and it's a different level.
It's a very good example. What brought South Beach back was a very aggressive approach to encouraging investment and waiving many of the standard zoning requirements that would be in place if you were developing it new. almost none of those historic hotels have any parking.
Right.
You're expected to go by cab or by bicycle, you walk, or you park your car somewhere else. And Miami Beach has built an aggressive collection of parking garages over the past 10 years. South Federal Highway, to me, is more similar to Biscayne Boulevard between 36th Avenue North and Miami up to about 42nd. There's a similar nature there. Again, Miami was very aggressive in historic preservation along that area, focused on the MIMO, mid-century modern movement, allowing a very open-ended way to reutilize hotels and motels, waiving many of the parking requirements for new development. The one I'm most familiar with is a Balance restaurant that has residential and office above it. It has almost no parking. Miami has waived parking requirements in many areas. We don't have the luxury to necessarily waive parking requirements, because the first thing that will happen if a development happens, there's no parking, they're parking on South Palm Way, and you're getting yelled at, and we're getting yelled at.
Right.
So we could have a workshop on some very aggressive things that we put in place. Whether it would actually bring fruitful investment, I don't know, but it would definitely have an impact on South Palm Park and the residential neighborhoods on both sides, because it will be focusing more on a very urban experience that we already have complaints in downtown for the residential that's so close. And that is a philosophical choice we might have to make, and we can present something to you after the first of the year.
And I'm not just talking about revitalizing that as a hotel district. I'm saying that as new housing areas or new this or that, just the layout of it and the windiness of it aesthetically lends itself to becoming very desirable. I think whether it's single family homes or townhomes or whatever, it has the look and feel and a walkability, good sidewalks, you know, good ability if we could redo with good biking, put good bike lanes on it. I mean, it has an appeal to it that exists sort of organically there. Now, as for the other, at Bryant Park, I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Hardy. Excuse me. The end of this flu thing is just great. I understand what you're talking about aggressively zoning. The problem that we have is that those two, you know, I always talk about compatibility, and you're looking at that building. I'm comforted to know that we lowered the building heights a long time ago, to know that you're not gonna have a skyscraper or something else there in the residential area, and know that, you know, we made a very conscious decision to keep us a low-rise city, so I'm confident with that. The increase in the density of it, you know, like I said, I was frustrated, I didn't understand what you were talking about, 20 and 30 and 40. I think that opening ourselves up, because it's compatible with what's there in a zoning type of situation, I feel comfortable with it in some ways. On the other ways, whenever it's your neighborhood and it's right next to your house, it's an entirely different thing. I think that the ability to bring people in to come up with creative solutions is one opening. To actually have a project approved in a certain area is an entirely different subject. And they would need to go out to the residents to see what types of projects they'd be interested in doing and whether they're compatible and would work in the community. And then that would have to go through the legal process of going through historic preservation and going through zoning and going through the city commission again. You know, I'm mixed in as where, because I want good investment, good sound investment, but knowing that it's just a possibility, you know, upsetting the residents in the area, I'm not comfortable with. I don't know where I'm at with it.
You
Commissioner Hardy?
have probably 45 days or more to think about it, because it always could be changed to one direction or another at our second hearing.
Okay. Commissioner Hardy?
Yep. I'll start with the fact that we have so much in the way of regulation in this city that limits possibilities. You have the charter, which caps things at 100, right? Then we have a land use map that takes it down from there. Then we've got a zoning code that takes it down from there as far as densities, height, all of that, right? So we've got this layering of, you know, diminishing the possibilities that we have here. On top of that, we have an incredible amount of valuable historic property. And we've got historic districts that again limit possibilities an area to preserve the character that we have. So much of the regulatory culture that we have here is based on preservation of what we have, and so little of it is based on creating a plethora of opportunities for people to come in and change the city in ways that are positive and help us add to our own identity and that help us create our own history here today. So what I continue to be concerned about, because look, historic's not going anywhere, thankfully, right? It's here, it's not going anywhere. I have been convinced by its exponents, like Darren Engel, by your emails and phone calls and meetings with people. It's not going anywhere, right? I have been convinced that we do need height limits. We don't want to become a high-rise city. At the same time, we need to create as many opportunities as we can underneath the most basic values that we have. As many opportunities as we can for people to come in and do new things. And I think that what has to go hand in hand with that is us communicating to residents that if we don't create these opportunities, all of the things that you want as far as community safety goes, right? I mean, I think there were 3, tell me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Sheriff, there were 3 murders in my district, right? District 2, just in the last 2 months, right? Okay. So while property crimes are down, violent crimes up. We're going to continue to have infrastructure needs going forward. People have issues with code. We need more code officers. I want more deputies. We have all of these things that we want to accomplish, and they're absolutely impossible unless we think in a very radical way about everything that doesn't encroach on our most basic values. So I think we need to make our core values smaller and negotiate on everything else. No, not negotiate, get radical about everything else that's not in our absolute core values. And I think going forward, I would like to have a workshop about maybe some of the things that we've got to do to get more business attention and investment on South Federal Highway. You talked about there were some things in the LDRs that you did not challenge because you felt like they were not appropriate. I think we need to be continually looking at the LDRs and chipping away at things that don't make sense.
I may have been misunderstood.
Sorry.
The environment in
In the past.
2011
Okay.
I was
was far different than it is today.
going to say
So
that.
we've been chipping away at making some changes. You will be visiting some LDR changes in February, most likely.
Okay.
If we can pull it together, we can look at the item the gentleman brought up. At that time, we are going to be making changes from the use table. But we did not want to bite off more than we could chew, and we didn't want to make such drastic changes until we could evaluate what the pros and cons of there will be. One of the arguments that I've had to make over and over again, there are some great things people might want to do, but there's just this equal number of bad apples that want to do the same thing in a bad way. So
The
I
lowest
don't want to be
common
the person responsible for issuing and opening up the hen house and the barn gates and letting Lake Worth just be destroyed because we thought one thing was a really good idea and it didn't vet it out appropriately.
That's
Sure.
exactly what I was
Sure.
saying. Exactly what he's,
So we're
exactly what
moving
you just said.
consistently. The changes that are being proposed now are being watched closely by some extremely influential money-backed investment entities that would like to come into Lake Worth for the first time ever. And they're anxious to see how we progress in moving ourselves to a comprehensive plan that embraces the 21st century in a big way. And I will prophesize, and I don't like to do this, but likely
Okay,
after
more
the
fees.
first of the year, there will be a great deal of interest in at least 4 or 5 projects that would like to take advantage of what we put in place with the comprehensive plan. Once the ball gets rolling, we will probably be able to increase and attract other investment in the city, all predicated that our economy stays strong.
And what you said is exactly how I feel about the situation. You know what I mean? Is that, and I love having you here because your attitude on things and not having been through all the battles that I've, when people will tell you that, that 35 feet and 45 feet when poor little Miss, Smith in the 300 block of North B Street was told that the mayor said that they could build a skyscraper next to her house in the 300 block of North B Street. The reality isn't necessarily always what happens. I've already heard that there's a wall that's going to be built, and then that's what about this area. There's going to be a wall there, and it's going to cut off the park, and there's gonna be no access to the park, and it's gonna block the sea breeze, and I mean, I've already heard these things, you know, already, and I just go, you know,
gonna pay
after,
for it?
after lawsuit, after lawsuit, after lawsuit, and that we just went through on the Gulf Stream property. So, it's, I wish reality was always a part of everything. There you go. We've got a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion carries 3-2.
Who were the nays?
I was a nay. Vice Mayor, was you a nay? I'm gonna get some more information and I'll come to the table on that.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you very much.
you. Ordinance number 2017-28, City Attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance number 2017-28 of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, amending Chapter 16 Pensions and Retirement, Article 2 Employees Retirement Systems, Section 16-26 Participation in the Pension Plan to provide an extension of the one-time option for specified employees to remain in the existing benefit structure, providing severability, the repeal of laws and conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any public comment
There's a
cards?
second by Commissioner Robinson.
Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is basically, Christie, do you want to, because it's the first reading, just give a little, do you have anything or no?
Lauren Slayton, our HR director, is here. If you
Lauren,
have
do you
any
want to just give a quick
questions.
recap if there's anything?
From my understanding, it's just to extend the one-time.
It's housekeeping in
option.
nature, Madam Mayor.
I know, yeah, I know,
To an
because I sit on the
agreement
pension.
from that y'all had approved actually in April. This gives us some more time to deal with some of the issues.
That was what we said when we gave them until the.
To the end of
until
the year,
September
but
or
we need
whatever.
to actually extend it through
Okay, that
March.
came before, just guys, it came before the pension board too, and it's giving them the opportunity, because the pension was, they opted out of one and they got promoted in another, is that the scenario?
Yeah, what we've been doing is negotiating with the unions to determine how we're gonna change the pension plan. This gives the people a chance to make sure that we get everything through both unions, get everything through you guys, get the pension ordinance changed before they have to make a choice. Just in case there's last minute changes in those negotiations, we don't want them to make a choice and then have the choice changed.
Okay. So we've got a motion in a second, there are no public comment cards, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. New business in the electric utility, come on down, gentlemen.
Come on, Ed.
Item D1, ratification of emergency purchase from Allied Power Group LLC to repair and service of the gas turbine number 2 compressor.
So move.
Second,
Second.
any public comment cards?
No, ma'am.
Seeing there are none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries 4 with Commissioner Hardy out. Florida Municipal Electric Association membership dues, I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor, any public comment cards?
No, ma'am.
Seeing there are none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries by 4. Partial waiver of procurement process for new power purchase agreement.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Scott and then seconded by Commissioner Amoroso. Any public comment cards?
No, ma'am.
Seeing there are none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries by 4. City Attorney, do you have a report?
I do not, Madam Mayor.
City Manager?
I just want to say a couple things, Mayor. Even though we had the glitch earlier with the program, I hope you appreciate that we're trying to do a little better in our meeting broadcast. We had the scrolling agenda item so people can
I
watch.
saw that.
So I compliment staff, Darian and Ben. Canvas, the events that are coming up, the events that have occurred, and I know y'all know this, but just want to remind you, there's a limited number of staff that really are responsible for coordinating, working. We have 2 event staff, Lauren and Sergio, and other staff pitch in, but we really do a lot with those limited resources, and they're phenomenal. They work the extra effort. So there were other people involved, and I'm so grateful to the Canvas organization, the Arts Council, the CRA, but my staff is phenomenal, and I think you should be very proud that what they've done in the events and the ones coming up. The holiday parade, it's intergalactic break-us.
It's Star Wars.
Intergalactic, we're not gonna say,
Intergalactic.
intergalactic
Yeah, Star Wars.
holiday event. So I understand Vice Mayor Maxwell's dressing up like a large Wookiee.
That is not a dress.
He's
how I know
undressing to become a Wookiee.
Can I
Okay.
get those earmuffs that
Yes.
look like that actress's?
Princess Leia?
Princess
Princess
Leia.
Leia.
I wasn't know if I could say that. I already said the other word.
We're gonna go down to
From Spaceballs.
2J's and get you a couple of bagels.
Give me some cinnamon buns for my ears.
You probably, most people have read, I guess, by now, that our finance director, Marie Eleanor, will be leaving us.
I read it in the paper, yeah.
Yeah, she submitted her resignation on Friday, and we're going to miss her. She has served a tremendous time here, doing a lot of good things in finance. She's pursuing some career choices closer to home with her family, and we totally understand that. But she will be missed, and our website, Ben is working, and I know he's got some discussions going on. Our website is not mobile app friendly. And so about every 5 years, you should probably go through your website. He's in the process of starting to gear that up. So we hope to have that here in the beginning of the year, some movement in that direction. And just one thing that was said in the meeting, code enforcement doesn't mark bulk piles. I just want to say that so everybody understands. There's sometimes people get confused over what's going on, and you'll get complaints. And sometimes they'll blame the wrong group. So we're really trying to do a good job of customer service. If somebody's got mattresses laying out in front of AT&T, obviously it's not theirs, but it's still the responsibility of the property owner. And I think we'll go over a lot of these issues when we have our code enforcement discussion. So we're looking forward to that. I want to wish everyone a happy holiday as well. Thank
I
you.
was
It's
just
been a
gonna
great
end that.
year.
Everyone have a wonderful and happy holiday. We will be back though next week. We have a workshop. It won't be an official meeting, so a special meeting? I thought it was listed as
Special
workshop.
meeting.
The special meeting
Just to set the ballot.
to set the ballot.
And
Okay.
there's a couple of other
There'll
items
also
on there.
be second
Every
reading
meeting is
of the
special.
pension. Second reading on the pension ordinance that you approved tonight. That will be on December 12th.
Well, thanks guys for getting me in the loop there. All right, so we'll see you next time, but this is our official regular meeting. I want to wish everyone a happy holiday season and
Do you
love
have
you
a
all.
motion and
I'll
a-
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Well, you guys are pushy. Move, seconded by Commissioner Amoroso. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. You gotta let me get it out of my mouth so I can
Sorry.
actually.
Alfonso.